I beat my wife. Now, I'm fighting for child custody. My marriage to Rebecca had been rocky for a while. We used to be so in love, but the stress of raising two young kids and working long hours to make ends meet had taken its toll on both of us. We had our moments of happiness, but the arguments and tension between us were becoming more frequent. I never imagined, though, that it would come to this. The day everything changed started off like any other. I left for work early in the morning, kissing my wife and kids goodbye, and promising to be home for dinner. After a few hours of slaving away on a computer, my boss surprised me with the news that I could leave early that day. I was thrilled at the thought of spending some extra time with my family, maybe even taking them to the park or out for ice cream. As I approached the house, I could hear muffled cries coming from inside. My first instinct was to rush in, fearing that something terrible had happened. I fumbled with my keys, my hands shaking with worry, and finally managed to unlock the door. When I walked into the living room, my heart dropped into my stomach. What I saw there was something I could have never anticipated. The woman who I had loved for years was standing over our two young kids with a belt in her hand. Both kids were cowering on the floor, sobbing, covered in bruises. The shock and horror of the scene rooted me to the spot for a moment. Without thinking, I charged at her and wrestled the belt away from her grasp. She stumbled back, looking at me with a mix of shock and anger. "What the hell are you doing home so early?" She spat, her eyes filled with venom. My voice shook as I replied, "What are you doing?" She scoffed, seemingly unfazed by my anger. "They're my children too, John. I have the right to discipline them how I see fit." I looked down to meet my daughter's gazes. Their tear-filled eyes seemed to plead with me, silently begging for help. That saved me look pierced right through me, and the rage inside me boiled over. In that moment, I lost control. I swung my fist and hit her square in the jaw. She crumpled to the floor, holding her face and whimpering. I stood there, my hands shaking, horrified at what I'd just done. Rebecca scrambled to her feet and ran out of the house, leaving me with the bruised and crying kids. I tried my best to comfort them, holding them close and telling them everything would be okay. But deep down, I knew things were far from okay. Before I knew it, police sirens filled the air, and I realized Rebecca must have called them. When the officers burst into the house, I didn't resist. I put my hands up and begged them to let me explain the truth. I told them the full story, making sure they understood the severity of the situation. They decided to bring the whole family to the station, and Rebecca and I gave our separate testimonies. Our kids waited in the lobby, their confusion and fear palpable as they tried to make sense of the chaos surrounding their family. In a few weeks, we will be fighting for custody of our kids. Am I in the wrong for my actions, and do I have a case for custody?